Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 412 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our fourth book was released. It's called Using AI to Grow Your Fraternity or Sorority. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And we have a fifth book that's going to be coming out for Christmas. So be on the lookout for that one. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I've always felt that leaders could spread happiness, whether that be at their company or their student organization or even at home. When I get home from a long road trip to college campuses, I have a choice. I can either be miserable about this long trip that I just went on, or I can be really excited to see my family. The choice is mine. Understand that the other members of your organization are watching you all the time, and you can transform your space just by having the right mindset when you walk into the room. To talk a little bit more about happiness today, we are going to be talking to our next guest, Andrea Vallely. She is an extraordinarily mindset luminary. She is a regular TV presence on CBS and a revered guest on various news talk radio stations and podcasts. Certified in hypnosis, neuro-linguistic programming, and a happiness coach and success coach, trained under the illustrious Dr. Robert Holden, creator of the groundbreaking Happiness Project. Andi boasts over a decade of transformative coaching experience. Her impactful journey has guided individuals through the shadows of anxieties and addictions while illuminating the path to success for Fortune 500 CEOs, recording artists, and Broadway stars. With a passion for unlocking human potential, Andi stands as a beacon of inspiration and empowerment in the world of mindset and personal development. Welcome to the show, Andi.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Michael. So fun.
Listen, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. I love your energy. So I am super pumped for this conversation today. And, I was thinking about your undergraduate experience. I'm trying to get into your mindset, like what makes up Andi. You went to school at the University of Florida and also Temple University.
Yes.
Talk
Yes.
to our audience a little bit about what your undergraduate experience was like.
Yeah, it was great. I loved the University of Florida. It was amazing. And I was a singer at the time. I was like a singer and an actress. And when I went to school, there was not I think there was like one program for musical theater, which was really what I wanted to do. But it just wasn't something that like now you can get a degree in that, but at the time you couldn't. So I was enamored. I'm from Philadelphia and I was like enamored with Florida, Avi, right? And I ended up my parents had a place in Delray Beach. So I was pretty used to Florida. So I wanted to look at schools and I saw the campus of University of Florida and I was like, I want to go there. So I ended up getting, it was a partial scholarship, which was great, for music. So I studied music there. I absolutely loved it. And then I got, bright eyes for going back to Philadelphia because one summer I went back and I was singing a lot. I was studying classical, but I was singing pop music sort of like semi-professionally. Mm-hmm. And I got in with a producer and one thing led to another and started to record an album. All those things happened. So I stayed back in Philadelphia and that's where I ended up getting my degree from Temple because I was sort of, I was working in the music business. Mm-hmm. But it was actually good timing because the semester that I didn't go back was when they had, this is not a happy thing, but it was when they had that crazy serial killer at University of Florida. I hate to bring that up, but it's true. Yeah. So a lot of my friends didn't end up going back and it just sort of turned out to be actually perfect timing because that was a scary thing and it was very real and it was occurring. So I ended up staying in Philadelphia.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, you know what? I know we were talking before the show that, you've never been to Nashville. Let me just say, as somebody who was like in the recording business for a while and a singer and all of that, for you to not spend time in Nashville is inexcusable.
I know, it really is. It really is.
Inexcusable.
I think they're going to lock me up.
All right. Well, when you and your husband get here, you let me know, and I will show you around. I promise. All right. All right. So in 2007, suddenly your life takes this profound turn. You encountered Brian Weiss's transformative book. It's called Many Lives, Many Masters. And
Yes.
all of a sudden, this triggers a seismic shift towards spirituality during a very challenging period that was marked by your father's illness. So,
Yeah.
talk to our audience. How did this book change your life?
Yeah. It's, first of all, it's a very quick, easy read if anybody's enjoys reading. Um, it's the book is about past life regressions. However, that wasn't what intrigued me so much. What intrigued me was like the lessons from the masters, in a sense. You got to be open to this stuff. But the lesson was that we're here to love. And that resonated with me. It was one of those things like when you just know something's true. And I knew that was true. Like I knew our essence was love. I knew that we're here to love. I know like that's the whole gig and that's what we're here to see. And it resonated with me, and it just sort of stopped me in my tracks, because before that I was in radio. I was an account representative at a radio station. I had my daughter at the time. She was, I think, about a year. No, she was 2 at the time. Um, and it was like everything just shifted for me. I just sort of turned off from what I was doing in advertising, and I just wanted to study. I wanted to know more. It was like the door open. I was very intrigued because I knew that it was very real. Now, the interesting thing about that book is that Dr. Brian Weiss, um, it was a psychiatrist. So for him, having this experience, he wasn't in that world. He was a medical guy that looked at logic and how the brain works and these kinds of things. But he was blown away by this particular client that he had that he just wasn't able to make headway with. And he thought, well, I did a rotation in hypnosis, let me try it, and went down this rabbit hole. So it's a very, for somebody who maybe is not in that conversation, doesn't believe in past lives, that kind of thing, read the book, because it's coming from a medical doctor from that perspective. So it was very interesting, but it absolutely started me on this quest of wanting to know more about our essence, our spiritual essence. And then when my dad got sick, I was like, my dad's my hero. I'm like, he can't get sick.
Mm.
And at that moment, I thought, gosh, the hospital system is so dreary and sad. And I remember saying to him, like, Daddy, don't read the newspaper. Like, I didn't want him to have any negative thoughts. So, I brought him, he loves Mel Brooks. So I brought him like, all these Mel Brooks. At the time, there were DVDs,
Sure.
and, went to Costco, got the little DVD player, and, I brought in Scrabble, and I brought him Book The Secret, whatever I could do to just keep his mindset in a very positive space. And at that moment, I was like, oh, this is, I can't look back. This is what I'm meant to do in the world. So that's a long story.
That's fantastic. I absolutely love
Yeah.
that. I think our dads are twins because my dad also loves Mel Brooks, and he's
Oh,
he's going through a rough patch now too. So maybe I'll go out and pick up some DVDs of Mel Brooks just to cheer him up. I think that's really
yeah.
good. And I got to pick up that book too because I'm probably in all honesty, I'm probably not the most spiritual person, right? But maybe if I pick up the book, maybe it's just going to like transform me in a good way because I think I could use a little bit more spirituality in my life.
It will not disappoint, and it's a quick read.
Yeah, all right. I'll go pick it up. I'll read it. I'll let you know what I think.
Yeah.
And so you suddenly now you're studying under Dr. Robert Holden. He's this visionary behind the Happiness Project and also
Yes.
the best-selling author of Happiness Now, Shift Happens, and Lovability. So what did you learn here on this path to becoming a certified happiness coach and a certified success coach?
Yeah, it's so interesting because it all is in the same direction. Like whether you're looking for well-being in your personal life or in your business,
Mhm.
it's all the same, just the language might be a little bit different. But it's so interesting for me to look back now, because since then I have studied every modality. I mean, not everyone, but probably most as far as looking towards your natural well-being. And when I look back at what I learned from Robert, it was the same foundation, which is so beautiful. And his foundation really is A Course in Miracles, which is amazing. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but that's a whole other journey. It's this crazy, very thick book that actually has a workbook that comes with it, and you can do a daily lesson in it. But it's all bringing you back to the fact that our reality is based on our perception, and everybody's reality is different. So nobody sees the world the same. We're all looking at reality through our filters. We're all looking at reality through our conditioned thoughts, through our learned behavior, through what we have been recycling in our minds. So we're not actually seeing the world. We're seeing our thinking about the world. And that's why two people can go to a movie and one person can love it, the other person can hate it. You're watching the same film. But we're seeing the world very, very differently. So for me, having that understanding has been a game changer, because here comes a fun fact. We get 11 million impressions per second, but our mind has the capacity to take in 40. So the big question is, which 40 are you taking in, right? You're recycling whatever your beliefs have been, whatever sort of like in your junk drawer, right? We all have the ability to shift that. And when we make that shift to something that, in essence, feels better, right? Something that is more expansive, our life will change. It has to, because from that place, we see something different. We see opportunities. It's like, I'm sure you've had this experience of like, having, looking for your glasses and they're on your head. It's like that kind of thing. Everything is right here for us. But when our mindset is very closed off, we don't have the ability to see it. But as far as actually physically having the ability to see something different, we all have that within us.
That's very cool. I like that. And, I know that you work with some pretty famous people. I'm wondering, how do you unlock human potential in people who are already successful, Fortune 500 CEOs,
Yes.
recording artists, Broadway stars? How do you unlock their potential?
Yeah, it's funny. It's always personal stuff, right? But it's always the same. Just like I said, when we first started speaking, it's like whether I'm working with a business or I'm working with a student, it doesn't matter. It's seeing where our experience comes from. Most of us believe that we are at effect of the world, that the world is this way, therefore I am that way, right? Once we shift that, so it's a paradigm shift, and we actually see the truth that we're not experiencing the world, we're experiencing our thinking about the world. And our thinking is based on what we have been recycling. So when you really actually dive into that and realize it, there's one thing to say it, to read it, anybody can say it, but when you actually embody that and realize that, nothing can touch you, because you know that everything is a momentary experience, and the potential for anything to unfold is always there. So it's more about, being in the moment. It's quieting down the mind. Here's where we all suffer, no matter if you're a CEO, Broadway star, singer, it doesn't matter. Where we all get stuck is we're either projecting the future or ruminating on the past. And that's what keeps us stuck. So the more we can be in the moment and without anything on it, so without judgments. I'm not saying this is easy, but this, to me, I couldn't think of a better way to spend time than to see this, because it is mental freedom, and we experience the world through our mind. It is absolute mental freedom. So it's letting go of the past, okay? And that's not easy. It's not easy, but it is the recipe for success. I remember Robert Holden said, in order to have a happy future, we must give up the thought of a happier past. Yeah. So it's starting fresh in the moment, allowing yourself to start fresh in the moment, and stop projecting what we think is going to happen and be available for what we would like to see. We're just not trained that way.
Yeah, we're definitely not trained that way. And you make it seem like it's pretty easy, but I know this is hard work. I know that it's difficult to forget about everything that has happened to us up until this point and just be present. It's hard to do, because we carry that stuff, that we carry that stuff like baggage with us into every situation. And you've been really successful, I think, in terms of getting the word out, and you were able to become the happiness expert on the happy hour at News Talk
Yeah.
1180 in Philly.
Yeah.
And you're a cherished regular contributor to CBS Morning News. I mean, how does all of that happen?
It's so funny. They're both kind of similar stories. And this is one of the things that I help people see, is that everything's possible when you get out of your own way. So when I was doing that radio show, a friend of mine, I worked in radio for years, so I knew a lot of people, on-air personalities. Well, a friend of mine had actually left the radio business. She became a real estate agent, but she was doing like a little snippet on a radio station. I don't even remember what she was doing, but she wanted to interview me. So she interviewed me, and the guy that was the producer for the radio station for, I guess, the morning show, loved the segment because it was all about happiness and positivity and how can we bring more joy into our life. So he called me up and he said, I've got a half-hour slot on Tuesdays at, I think it was 8:30 to 9. Do you want to do this happy hour? And I said, yeah. So that's how that happened, just totally out of the blue.
Right.
And then it was very similar with TV. It was really funny. I had said to my husband about 6 months prior, I was like, I have radio experience. I'd love to do TV. That would be fun. I'd never done TV before. It was just a very flippant, wouldn't that be cool? And one day I have a client in Delray Beach, and I had something I had a little folder for her with some information, whatever. And she lived right near this hotel called the Seagate, which was a place I would always go for coffee, just like a great little local place to stop in, for a snack or something. And I said to her, meet me there. I have this for you. And she said, well, I can only meet you in this window because I'm getting my carpets cleaned. I said, okay, great. I'll meet you there in that little window. So I met her there, gave her the folder, saw a friend of mine who his name is Kerry, and he's been very influential with us with our retreats that we do. He found out about our retreats from our friend Nicole, who actually created a space for us to do our first retreat, and ended up booking us at a space in Naples to do another retreat. So he knew about our retreats. He was having lunch with the anchor of the CBS News. And I didn't know because I don't watch TV. I didn't know who she was. But he said to her, he introduced us and he said, oh my, Suzanne, you will love Andi. She's totally up your alley. She does these amazing retreats and blah, 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 blah. So Suzanne and I started talking and she said, I'd love to interview you. I had no idea what she did. And I said, oh my God, that'd be fantastic. She went to University of Florida. We became fast friends. She's still one of my dearest friends. This was, I don't know, maybe about 7 years ago. And I went in and did a segment. And the producer was very open to this conversation. And she was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. Let's do this every Monday. So that's how that happened. And I was a regular there up until COVID. And then they didn't have guests and blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, it was both of those things just happened totally out of the blue.
Right place, right time. I mean, it's just amazing how stuff like that happens.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just on yesterday, it was like, it's just, and that was another, I had an idea for a segment, it's just, you just put yourself out there and things happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. You got to put yourself out there. Now, the students that we're talking to right now, they're listening to this show, they feel so much pressure today. There's so much anxiety, there's depression, there's, the high cost of a college education. I mean, there's so much on their minds. Talk to our audience about natural mental health. Where should they be looking for peace of mind today?
Yes, I see it so much. I work with a lot of college students and young adults, and especially even after college, I see their minds are so busy. They feel under so much pressure. And unfortunately, that pressure takes them further away from what they want. It's so unfortunate because you're like, but I feel pressure. And that's just not the way to make things happen. It's just not. So unfortunately, we're looking in the wrong direction, meaning, I feel like there's so much pressure on college students and young adults that they have to do something, they have to get somewhere, they have to make something happen. And just that energy in their mind actually blocks them from seeing what's available. So again, it's a redirect. It's a learning to quiet the mind so that we can actually see what's available for us. So the first thing I would say is you want to take the pressure off. Now, remember, nobody can make you feel pressured. We have to accept that challenge. Okay. So the first thing is seeing that nobody can actually, I'm the thinker. I am the one who's putting pressure on myself. And the more you get centered, it's so funny. The easiest thing to do is just to start a breathing practice. You know, it doesn't even have to be a formal meditation. It can just be a breathing practice. Breathe through the nose and breathe right into your heart. We have a natural rest and relax mechanism within us that brings us back to coherence, creating coherence between the heart and the mind. When we're in coherence, we communicate better, we're better listeners, we're able to access our internal genius. So the first thing is to start a breathing practice, just simple breathing in and out through the nose. You can do that for less than a minute, and you'll notice you just feel better, because we're always in a rush and we get nowhere when we're in a rush. So the first thing to do is to bring yourself to a better state of mind where we can think clearly, and always say to yourself, what's one thing I can do today to move me towards my goal? It doesn't have to be 5 things. It can be, what's one thing that I can do today to move me towards my goal? But the power in all this, is to really understand, how does my mind work? Because the mind's where we're suffering. So it's having a better understanding of how the mind works, and having this conversation that we're having be the most important conversation, because our mental health is to me, it's the most important thing, because if we don't have well-being, everything else is going to suffer. So the first thing is learning to calm the mind. And then from that calm space, what is actually true? Well, it's true I have to go to class, right? It's true that I have to do my homework. But is it true? Is it actually true that, all of these other things, are they actually true? And if they are, so what's one thing I can do to make that easier? It's really breaking it down, seeing what's actually true, because a lot of the pressure we put on ourselves is self-imposed,
Totally agree with that. Speaking about mental health, I know today's students are on social media all the time, constantly comparing themselves to somebody else's best day on Instagram, where they're at, they're on the beach, they're, perfect body, like everything, the whole thing. So is there anything our students should be doing in order to boost their own self-esteem, their own self-confidence?
Yeah, stay away from social media. I know it's the world today, but the first thing I would say is, stop looking at your likes. Stop creating this idea that your self-worth is based on your social media accounts, because it's not. If you take that personally, you will always be at the mercy of it, and you will be chasing your tail for the rest of your life. So we must start looking within for our peace. It's not outside of us. That's the biggest mistake we make, is that our peace, that we think our peace is, well, when that happens, I'll be happy. That's what causes stress. Right. It's actually looking within for our peace. And as a result, the world gets better, but our peace of mind is not outside of us. So that's the first thing, is knowing that we are okay, no matter what our social media account looks like, no matter what somebody else is doing, no matter what is going on outside of us, we are okay. When we build our self-worth, our self-esteem from that place, because it's already within us, we've just blocked it and put a bunch of rules on it, okay? Our self-esteem and our self-confidence is already there, but we've just put so many rules around it that we stifle ourselves innocently. We're stifling ourselves. So the first thing to look at is to say, wait a second, I'm okay no matter what. I'm okay no matter what. It's stop looking outside of yourself for your self-worth. That's the biggest thing. So if you can be okay and look at Instagram and look at your likes and your followers, and your mood has nothing to do with that outcome, go for it. That's fantastic. But if looking at that causes anxiety, don't look. Don't look.
Really hard for today's students, I'll tell you that.
I know.
They're just attached, to their phones.
I know. I get
so
it.
It's easier said than done. You're right. But it's easier said than done.
Yeah. So the answer is to realize that if you think your well-being is coming from outside of you, you'll always be chasing your tail. That's it. You got to see that you're already perfectly perfect, because you are. We all are. We just mask it with, story after story after story that we buy into. We don't see we're the ones that are buying into it. Nobody's making us buy into it. We're giving it energy. We're giving it meaning.
Absolutely. Now, I know that today's students, they want to have motivated teams. Many of them are in fraternities or in sororities, they're in student organizations. So if they want to create a loyal, motivated team within their fraternity, their sorority, what 3 transformative steps should they be taking today?
Yeah. So the first thing is, again, you got to get one with self. You must see that no matter what, you are okay. It's like in math, 2 halves make a whole, right? But in relationships, that's not the case. So if we are, again, looking for, well, I'll be happy when things are going well in my sorority or my fraternity, and I'll be happy when everybody likes me in my fraternity and sorority. Again, that's coming from a place of insecurity. People feel that energy. They feel that energy. So the first thing is to really I don't like to call it work. It's wake up to the fact that you are already whole no matter what. People feel that too. It feels good to be around somebody that is just comfortable in their skin no matter what, so you want to look in that direction. You want to get comfortable in your own skin. That's the first thing. The second thing is to understand separate realities. Nobody sees the world the same, right? If we all understood separate realities, the world wouldn't be in chaos, right? So understand, nobody sees the world the same way. We're all looking at the world through our own lens, through our past judgments, through our own history. But when we know, oh, wait a second, they don't see the world the same way I do, but that's okay. And we stop judging that, that takes the pressure off. It's like, oh, you can have your opinion and I can have my opinion, and both of us are right. It's fine. Just imagine if we didn't have to be right, if we didn't have to get into it with somebody else. If we could just love and honor, that's where they stand, and then if they're standing in a place of aggravation, we don't have to fuel the fire. We can, like I say, it takes 2 people to play tennis. You can always walk off the court. If somebody still wants to play, they'll find somebody else to play with.
I like that. That's really, really good stuff. Now, I know good food in Nashville, Tennessee. Okay. So if you want a good place to eat, you come and talk to me. But, I love eating good food, and I sense that good food too. This is just a sense that I'm getting. So when you want a great meal, where do you go in Delray Beach, Florida? Because I have to go and check that place out.
Yes. Well, I do love food too. I must tell you that. I really do. So I would say the best restaurant, and this is very high end, so I got to be honest about
That's
it.
okay.
It's an
That's all right.
expensive
I'll
place,
take it.
but the food is really fantastic. Is a place called Avalon, and
Okay.
it's on Atlantic Avenue. And I just, everything there is like cooked perfectly. If you're a meat eater, their steaks are phenomenal. If you're a seafood person, their tuna, it's just everything that they do there is so gorgeous, and just done so beautifully, cooked to perfection. I mean, they take pride in everything. Like it's an experience to go there. It just has like such a good feel to it. So that would be like my, wow, if you really want to go and like have a fantastic meal, my opinion.
That's fantastic. Well, that'll be easy for me to remember since my last name is Ialon. I
Yeah.
can definitely remember Avalon, and I will go and check that out next time I'm in Delray Beach. So I'm excited for that. It sounds absolutely perfect for me.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
Super
like
yummy.
it. All right. So if our listeners, if they want to connect with you for coaching, or perhaps they want to invite you to come and speak on their college campus on happiness, where should they go in order to connect with
Yes.
you?
Oh my goodness. I would love that. Any chance I get to just, tap somebody on the shoulder and just wake them up to their potential, is such a gift. My
Mhm.
website is shifthappens.global. So you can go to my website. There's a free download on 33 conversation starters. There's also a download an atomic happiness toolkit. So you can grab some free stuff. And just to start you on your journey, on Instagram, Shift Happens Global, and Facebook, which probably isn't that cool anymore, is Shift Happens. TikTok, Shift Happens Global. So if you stick with Shift Happens Global, you're going to find me. And if you put a dot, Shift Happens global, you're going to get to our website, and there's lots of information there. You can always email me. That's on our website too. So I thank you. I thank you. This was just so much fun, and you're such a joy, and I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you very much, Andy. It's very kind for you to say. go and check out shifthappens.global or check her out on Instagram, on TikTok. Nobody uses Facebook anymore, so we're just going to forget about
Except me.
it. You're dating yourself. Just
I know.
just forget
I
about
shouldn't have said
Facebook.
that. Oops.
It's okay. I'm there with you though, so it's totally fine. But if you enjoyed this conversation with Andi, I want to make sure that you like it, share it with other college students because they certainly need to hear Andi's words and just wake up to some of these things that she's talking about here today. So thank you so much for sharing all this great information with us
Oh,
today.
it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you do. It's beautiful.
You got it. And hopefully you enjoyed this. Make sure you like it. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. And we're going to see you next time.